And we will slide into the Warriors. The Warriors had a good win over the Broncos at Mount Smart Stadium, and on Friday evening, they are down in Christchurch for an Anzac Day encounter against the Newcastle Knights. First thing I'll say, this crowd in Christchurch will be far bigger than any Crusaders crowd in Christchurch this season, and it needs to be reinforced that Super Rugby would love to have crowds anywhere near what the Warriors get every single week. Right? That is probably the biggest observation I've made about New Zealand sport over the last year or so. But because it's not really talked about, right? Like rugby union is still viewed as the biggest thing in Aotearoa sport, except no Super Rugby crowd comes close to the crowds that the Warriors get, whether it's at Mount Smart, whether it's in Christchurch, whether it's a preseason trial, because that game against the Storm in Waikato, in Hamilton, that crowd has been bigger than any Chiefs crowd in Hamilton this year. Needs to be said. What also needs to be said, and something that has been doing the rounds of the, let's go with strange Aussie media, all of which is like, we're two white fellas, we're two half Pakeha, half Palangi fellas, but anytime I see like the little faces pop up of your commentators, or you tune into NRL 360, NRL 180, it's just a whole lot of white dudes. And it's like, I don't think this really reflects the rugby league landscape, but whatever, because we are just two half Pakeha, half Palangi dudes. But I have, like, there's been this Lockie Galvin situation, and there's a lot of agent chat because the agent Isaac Moses is being blamed for this situation. First and foremost, the player employs the agent. So any situation where there's something like this happening where people want to blame the agent, well, then you're just trying to make the agent seem more like a big deal, like a celebrity. They are a big deal because they're doing all this crazy stuff. No, they are doing what the player wants because the player pays them. And if the agent is not doing what the player wants, if the agent is doing the opposite of what the player wants, they're a shit agent. So who cares about the agent? It's about the player and what the player wants. But everyone puts Isaac Moses on a pedestal. Oh, he's tearing apart the club. He's doing another exit job. Isaac Moses is to blame. I don't care about the agent, good or bad. It's about the player because the player employs the agent. They pay the agent to do what they want to do. Yes, Lachlan Galvin's 19 years old. He might not know better. He might be a young fella, and that's a lot of blame to put on the young fella. But that's what's happening. But it's also an interesting situation because old mate Andrew Webster here, he is always mentioned as an Isaac Moses client. I am interested in this because the Warriors were one of the clubs where Isaac Moses had his tentacles. He had Stephen Kearney, and that was like the Stephen Kearney, the Adam Blair, the Blake Green. That was basically the Isaac Moses era of the Warriors. In that era, Cameron George was the boss man thing. He was the Bombadil of the Warriors. I'm not sure when Mark Robinson became owner, but it was around that time. So the owner, Mark Robinson, and Cameron George experienced what it was like to have an agent with their tentacles in your club. In that context, the agent is a little bit more important because they are servicing the coach and they are servicing the player. So multiple players and your coach are employing the agent to do what's best for the players and the coaches. So then they become intertwined. The best thing for the coach is to keep his job. To keep his job, he wants reliable players. So then he goes to his agent. Can you get some reliable players? Can you get us Adam Blair and Blake Green? And so on. But Cameron George and Mark Robinson experienced all of that joy. Why would they then just bow down to Isaac Moses again and hire Andrew Webster for the same experience? That's where a little bit of doubt creeps into my mind, because the way the Warriors are being run now is very different to how they were being run during the Stephen Kearney era, which was all about the Isaac Moses connections. So Ortex bought the Warriors at the later in 2019, September 2019. That was still when Stephen Kearney was coach and a lot of the Isaac Moses players were still at the Warriors. So if Cameron George and Mark Robinson had a full experience of that phase, I don't believe that they would then allow another Isaac Moses client, apparently Andrew Webster, to then do the same stuff. So my point here, aside from getting into the nitty-gritty of whatever we're talking about, but my point is Andrew Webster is mentioned as part of this Isaac Moses kerfuffle because he is a Isaac Moses. It's like Isaac Moses is one of his clients, but Andrew Webster is also Isaac Moses is also a client of Andrew Webster because Andrew Webster pays him. So again, if we're getting back into that thing, if there's an issue at the Warriors, it's because Andrew Webster has an issue. It's not because Isaac Moses has the issue. It's because Andrew Webster is smart enough, dumb enough, whatever it is, to make Isaac Moses his agent and then co-sign the decisions that the agent makes. Because once again, in this situation with Galvin, it is being delivered as if Galvin has no say in the matter, when the whole concept of this relationship is that the player, Galvin, has all the say in the matter because the agent, his father, whoever else it is doing what the player wants. Back on track, and my point is that Andrew Webster's mentioned as one of the coaches under the Isaac Moses umbrella, but I do not believe that the leadership of the Warriors, which I believe is a good leadership group, they are strong leaders, Cameron George and Mark Robinson, they won't allow the club to be derailed in any way, shape, or form by another individual. Especially when they have now experienced the various ways of running an NRL team. So don't worry about seeing Andrew Webster's name intertwined with the Isaac Moses stuff, is what I'd say. Yes, he may be represented by Isaac Moses, but I do not think the Warriors would ever allow Andrew Webster to rip apart the Warriors in any way, shape, or form via the agent.
Do the Warriors have players under the Moses banner as well in the way that they did before? Like they had Kearney as a coach there, but they also had a bunch of players, like you're mentioning, running off the names, Blair Green, etc., in the past. They have a coach again under the Moses banner, but do they have the same sort of like chunk of the playing base, or is, I don't know how much of that information is even public, but
I'd stick with apparently Andrew Webster is under the Isaac Moses thing because there's still the waters are still a bit murky, but no, we don't. There's like the player isn't listed with the agent because again, the agent, like who cares about the agent, right? Like you cover a lot of football. Do you know any agents' names?
Only the bad ones.
There you go.
Only the ones who do what Isaac Moses is accused of doing, which is like bringing bulks of players at once and sort of manipulating clubs and trying to work out deals in that way. But no, if the agent does their job properly, you never have to learn who they are. And if they get you, like, it doesn't actually matter who Andrew Webster's agent is right now, does it? Because he's got the contract. You know, he's got the contract. He's not in negotiations for anything like that. He just goes to work and does his job each day. He doesn't even have to talk to his agent until it comes time to negotiate the next one.
Yes, but so my message is, because there are probably people who see Andrew Webster in these yarns from the Australian media, and they're worried because they may also know how the previous regime was operated, so they may be concerned. I don't have any concerns right now. But so we don't know who the agents of all the players are, because we shouldn't know, because it's not important to us, because it's all about the player, because the agent just does what the player wants, so it doesn't matter. It's just about the player. There may be a situation, though, where the Warriors just have a little bit more variety, and they're using different connections. They're actually operating a well-run organization where there is a development thread throughout the whole club, where Australians from all different backgrounds, with all different agent representations, want to come to the Warriors. They're not coming to the Warriors because of the agent connection with the coach. So maybe, in summary, the leaders of the Warriors learned from that experience, and they have tweaked how they operate as an organization. And there is nothing to worry about with Andrew Webster apparently being connected to Isaac Moses. There is also nothing to worry about with the Warriors' development pipeline, because for the third season in a row during the two Andes era, now again, going back to that previous discussion, I would add, now they have Andrew McFadden, who actually does a very good job of scouting and recruitment where it doesn't matter anything about agents, because he's just doing a great job at seeing the players and recruiting for their needs. I don't think the Warriors have ever had such a scouting and recruitment dude like Andrew McFadden at their club before. And now they do. And for the third year in a row, the New South Wales Cup Warriors are one of the best teams with a very young roster. So they are currently first, 5-1. Their only loss did come to the Newtown Jets a couple of weeks ago. Newtown Jets are second, but they've played an extra game. So the Warriors, for the third season in a row, have a good New South Wales Cup team that is, again, very young. So if I go back to the team that played on the weekend, both the New South Wales Cup and the Jersey Flegg Warriors had wins over the Dragons, so no biggie there, just good stuff. But the New South Wales Cup team only had a few older players, and by older, I'm meaning Kaylani Goings, 28 years old. Geronimo Doyle's 28 years old. They are the only, Setu Tu, I think, is 26, and he just joined the Warriors, returning from Queensland Cup, which is a deep cut that we don't need to talk about today. We might talk about some more Warriors stuff, especially previewing the Knights game in Christchurch in our bonus podcast tomorrow for Patreon and paid Substack subscribers. How old is Morgan Harper? He might be 26 years old. He's 26 years old. The rest of the Warriors New South Wales Cup team that defeated the Dragons, they are young. Deon Amatano, Moala Graham Telfer, Luke Hanson, Tana Boyd, Harry Durbin, Sam Healy, Rodney Tuipulotu Vea, Kalis Fatialofa, Eddie Aramia Toiava. Jason Salalilo, Toby Crosby, Makai Tafua. They're all in their early 20s, if not teenagers. I mean, the starting props in New South Wales Cup last week with Harry Durbin and Rodney Tui Pelotuvea, who are back down to under 21s this weekend. This is the third season in a row that the Warriors New South Wales Cup team has been winning with more young talent than older talent. That's a very important development wrinkle observation for starters. If your reserve grade team is top 4 for the third season in a row with a lot of young talent, that is something that is very impressive and it's like a cornerstone that you can build upon. It's not a cornerstone that the builder refused. It's a cornerstone that you can build upon. Especially when the Warriors are in a tough battle with the Broncos. And it's a really important game, I reckon. Like, they're at home. They've just come off a loss. The Broncos aren't at their best, yet the Warriors are still presenting opportunities to lose the game against the Broncos. It's a really tough game. And at the end of that game, Ali Leota was on the field. Leka Halasima's on the field. Dimitri Vaimonga's on the field. And Jacob Laban's on the field. In the last 10 minutes, in the last 5 minutes. When Luke Metcalf kicks that penalty, those 4 young players are on the field. Where did those 4 players come from? They came from the New South Wales Cup team that was very good in 2023. That was also very good in 2024. Now, all those 4 players, they weren't playing on the weekend, and a young New South Wales Cup team won 40-12. So now there's a pattern here. There is a trend of Warriors youngsters contributing at a very high level in the NRL and in the New South Wales Cup. Having those 4 youngsters on the field was probably my most interesting observation and something that I've thought the most about since then. Because Leotawa, he's playing 80 minutes at centre, like he's going to be on the field. But there's not necessarily a need for Halasima, Vaimonga, and Laban to be on the field together. Most coaches, most teams, they would get the senior players, but there's, as has been another theme of the last season and a bit, the best Warriors performances come with their second tier players. Like, that goes hand in hand with the New South Wales Cup team being good and the Warriors producing good young talent. So yes, like there might have been less opportunity to play some more experienced players, but Vaimonga's in the middle, Halasima's on one edge, and Jacob Laban's on the other edge in the most important phase of this game. That was very impressive, and that kind of boosted the win for me, seeing that happen, and then like making sure that was happening, like my brain wasn't tripping out. So going back through the substitute patterns, going back through the highlights to make sure that those dudes are on the screen together, make sure I wasn't tripping out. So I found that very impressive. But there was also a different tweak. So in the middle, you had Vaimonga, Mitchell Barnett, and Chanel Harris-Tavita, because the Warriors in the last few minutes of that game had Tamaita Martin, Luke Metcalf, Wade Egan, and Chanel Harris-Tavita on the field together. Tamaita Martin was in the halves on the left side of the field. Luke Metcalf was in the halves on the right side of the field. Wade Egan was playing hooker because he had come back on, and Chanel Harris-Tavita stayed on the field with Tamaita Martin. So wait, let me backtrack. Tamaita Martin came on for Wade Egan, and then he played halves, and Harris-Tavita went into hooker. But then when Wade Egan came back on, Harris Tavita stayed on as a middle forward. Which leads into another thought about the Warriors, where there's a lot of like Freddie Lussick starting at prop buzz. Like there's this, it's a very like old school rugby league thing where if you're playing at prop, you need to look a certain way. But the thing about the Warriors under coach Andrew Webster is there's always a small forward on the field. And that's a term that I've just like thrown out there in recent seasons because of what Andrew Webster's doing. Dylan Walker, small forward. Aaron Clark, small forward. Harris Tavita, small forward. Freddie Lussick, small forward. Kailani Going, small forward. You can go deeper. You can go to under 21s where you got Etuati Fukafuka, small forward. The under 21s, they can also play with Makai Tafua and Jacob Auloa on the field together because Auloa and Tafua can also play small forward. So that's a pattern that is across all Warriors teams, and they do a very good job at it. Another completely useless stat, well, not useless, but just a random stat, is Aaron Clark had 16 passes for the Warriors in that win over the Broncos, which was the most of the Warriors forwards, definitely. Can't be bothered to go back and check the Broncos forward. Well, actually, we will. How many passes? Because I think Patrick Carrigan played the whole game in the middle. Didn't do as much as Aaron Clark, though, I'll say that. So Carrigan had the most passes of a Broncos forward with 4 passes. Aaron Clark had 16 passes. Aaron Clark, also one of the most ruthless runners of the footy in the team, also one of the most ruthless defenders of the team, because the thing that I love the most about that win for the Warriors was how they smashed people. So it's like there's that style of play where they just turn over, they play the long game, complete your sets, turn it over down their end of the field, get your way down, run the ball, good runners, speed around the ruck, move the defenders around, kick it back to them, repeat it. But the Warriors, they're not at the Bulldogs level of doing this, of course. Like the Bulldogs, as I said last week, they play that physical defense the best. But in this game against the Broncos, they were just always smashing them. And that's something that, you know, Aaron Clark leads. It's something that Halasima loves to do. It's something that Mitchell Barnett loves to do. Harris Tavita smashing Adam Reynolds. Like the Warriors, they want to physically batter you after kicking the ball down your end of the field. And when you're doing that for 75, 78 minutes, then you start to reap the rewards. And they definitely did that against the Broncos. I don't know if that led to the win, because it was a back and forth counter, errors, mishaps all over the show, but maybe it did. Maybe battering the opposition just conjured a bit of fatigue for the Broncos and helped the Warriors get the win.
Yeah, I mean, that and Ben Hunt dropping the ball for no reason when they're about to kick the winning field goal, and Reece Walsh booting the kickoff and Golden Point too deep and allowing Metcalf the chance. But then at the same time, like, errors had sort of let the Broncos back into that game as well. And I guess the biggest, most glaring ones were Metcalf not nailing his kicks, his conversions, but then he clearly made up for that with a 50-meter banger to win the thing. So, but it was like that game was played in the middle of a cyclone, right? It was one of those games where I think errors were going to be necessary, regardless of anything else. And that physical aspect of it gets amplified. And I do remember a game you've mentioned a couple of times. It might have been the year before last year, where the Roosters came to New Zealand and won a very soggy wet weather game against the Warriors by doing smart footy things. And here it wasn't it was far from a clinical performance from the Warriors, but they did win in large part because they were not the team that made the errors at the end. And I mean, that feels like I don't know, that feels like a bit of growth for the Warriors as well, as being able to win a game like that in those conditions against a very good team like the Broncos.
I think Metcalf's actually, but his biggest mistake was kicking dead late in the game. And then the Broncos had a 7-tackle set, but they were too shit to do anything with it. I think that's when Ben Hunt might have dropped the ball or something like that.
Yeah.
But it was part of a period where you're like, oh, the Warriors just need like a bit of polish just to get the job done. But they kept up with the mishaps. Something I did think about, which leads into like the Aussie mana of this team, because Capewell just rips in. He has a crack. He tries to make so many tackles that he misses a lot of tackles. So he's always got a high number of missed tackles, but he's like, he's a winning player. He just does winning things that aren't really reflected in the stats. I mean, shout out Jackson Ford. If we're talking about Aussie mana, it doesn't get any higher than Jackson Ford because I was like, he's had a redemption cycle. He started the first game, but the whole team was shit. It wasn't just Jackson Ford upon reflection. The whole team sucked. Then he goes back to the bench. Every week on the bench, he gets better and better and better. And then he's awesome, starting prop again against the Broncos. Wade Egan, equally as classy as he is tough. And Mitchell Barnett, the skipper, man, we had chopped up the clip of him talking about the tribute to Sonny Fye on the jersey. And then, like, if we're talking the Aussie version of James Fisher-Harris, it's Mitchell Barnett. And I think Luke Metcalf has some of this juice as well, because like rugby league half skills. I think Tamaita Martin and Tanner Boyd are both better than Metcalf and Harris Tavita. If we're talking about organizing, passing, kicking, and like directing traffic, they're the best combo. I think just straight up, Tanner Boyd might be the best halfback at the Warriors. But Harris Tavita, he smashes dudes. He's got a left foot kicking game, and he's good enough at running the footy. So that's why he's in the NRL team. You could make the case that out of those four players, Luke Metcalf is fourth. I don't know if I'm going to make that case, but someone could make that case. But Luke Metcalf has the pizzazz. I think there's a better word, but he has the charisma of a halfback leader, which can be as stupid as his celebrations. Like when he scored the try, did the noise out, and then he hits the winning field goal. It's game time and all that stuff. It could be just that stuff. It could be just the energy he provides the team. So it's like, I don't know if he is the best half at the Warriors, the best playmaker at the Warriors, but he has the most personality. He's got the most juice. He's got the most charisma. And that's what makes him so fun as a Warriors halfback. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does make sense. And it reminds me of one of the complaints about the team last year was them not having enough pace. And it's something I've been thinking about recently because it's one of the conclusions I've come to with the Wellington Phoenix women is that they don't have a lot of pace. And yeah, Metcalf, maybe when you account for as an experience as well, I can see how that case can be made for him as 4 out of 4, but I also can see the opposite case of like because of the differences that he has in just the type of player that he is compared to the other 4, it also arguably sets him apart from the rest of them because he does some things those guys can't do, which the team as a whole really need. And he missed some kicks in that game. He also had a game winner, so it's a little bit of a it wasn't quite as big of a redemption arc as Jackson Ford, but it was like a 20-minute redemption arc. For a little while there, he was looking like he's looking like he might be the villain, and he ends up getting to be the hero. So instances like that as well, where you think maybe that wouldn't matter that much within the wider scope of his season, but like getting a big moment like that where you get to feel like the man and you get to run off celebrating. It's like I did the thing that won the game for this team. Like that's going to help him massively with confidence and whatnot moving like into next week and beyond as well. So if anything, that just reinforces where he is and where he's heading.
It's a big moment for him, but it's also a big moment for the fans because he has those moments.
For sure, yeah.
Like these are Metcalf moments. That's what I'm talking about. Metcalf has the moments. He has the Metcalf moments. And whether it's the celebrations at Mount Smart or just him, his personality flowing through the team, these are Metcalf moments. And like it does feel a bit Sean Johnson-y because Johnson had those moments. But even then, like Luke Metcalf, does he have a sidestep? Does he have a goosey? I haven't seen those things. But he's a good runner of the footy, right? Like his running style kind of sums him up because it's like a catch the ball, stop, then I run. It's like I need to like just see the gap before I run. It's not like he's very like when Metcalf's going to burst forward is the easiest way to say it because there's just the mannerisms, the way he sets up, you kind of sense that Metcalf's going to run the ball. But he's not, like a Sean Johnson stepper type of runner. But it's Metcalf moments, and that's what he's doing for the Warriors. And it's really impressive to have that, but it's also really impressive for the Warriors where, like, Te Maire Martin had a game where he was involved in every try in New South Wales Cup. I think that was the Roosters game. The Warriors versus Dragons. I think Tanner Boyd had a similar game. He only had 2 try assists, but he just like dictated the whole game. Tanner Boyd playing halfback for the Warriors in New South Wales Cup. So those 2 dudes are right there. And as I said before, Tanner Boyd came to the Warriors and seems completely happy building into whatever might happen. Watching the Jersey Flegg highlights, and we've been kind of chilling out on the Jet Cleary hype, but Jet Cleary was doing stuff in every try for the Warriors in their win over the Dragons in Jersey Flegg. And like just straight up there, you've got 3 levels of a really good halves combination. I haven't mentioned Luke Hansen, but he plays New South Wales Cup more than Jet Cleary. They're named together for this round, which if the Warriors are playing in Christchurch on Friday night, Te Maire Martin and Tanner Boyd are both in the NRL squad to go to Christchurch. They're not going to be available to be involved in New South Wales Cup on Saturday back in Auckland. Whereas if they're all playing at Mount Smart, Tanner Boyd can be involved in the NRL squad after playing New South Wales Cup. Like it's a logistics thing. But this week, Cleary is named in the halves for New South Wales Cup, which may or may not happen because they may make a late change as they did for last week's games. But I can also see Cleary and Hansen starting in the halves together in New South Wales Cup. So then you've got Cleary and Hansen as the two standout halves at an under-21s level. You've got Te Maire Martin and Tana Boyd, the two standout halves at the New South Wales Cup level. And then you've got Chanel Harris-Tavita and Metcalf moments. As I said that, I can't think of another time where the Warriors had that halves depth, like that quality of halves depth, where the most hyped player in that group may be the lowest ranked. Like Jet Cleary has the most hype, but just based off where they're playing, how they are selected, how these teams are selected, he is 6th out of 6 because Hansen's played more New South Wales Cup. That is the level of halves depth that the Warriors have right now, which is very exciting and very encouraging, because that's probably a position where they've lacked the quality of depth in our lifetimes. Just sticking with the lower grades for a moment here before we move on. The Hansen going up to New South Wales Cup, he's one of the bigger mover-uppers at the moment. But the bigger most mover-uppers who have helped the Warriors be competitive in the NRL, well, that's the thing. Like the players who are missing from the game against the Broncos, they're all the Aotearoa players, right? Tuivasa Sheck, Nickel Clockstar, Watane Zalesniak. So that put him. That's where I came about that Aussie mana, because then your leaders are the Aussies. Fisher Harris was missing as well. So then your leaders are the Aussies, your Barnetts, your forwards, your Metcalfs, your Egans, and those characters, Capewell. I'd say the biggest mover-upper is this season. Taintua Piki playing every game. Leotawa playing every game. Halasima Vaimonga. Bunty Afoa's had a resurgence. Edward Kossi's had a resurgence. And Jacob Laban has just moved up recently. And then the dudes who have the youngsters you need to know about is a better way of saying it as far as New South Wales Cup game time goes. Kalis Fatialofa, Eddie Aramia, and who else? There's someone else. Tanistella Smith. They're also guys between New South Wales Cup and NRL who have both been named 18th man, which to me, I think that is more of an experience position in terms of, yes, they may need to play, so that you need someone who can contribute, but you can use that 18th man position because the chances of playing are unlikely. You can use that position as a bridge to show Stella Smith, Eddie Aramia Toiava the game day experience of playing in the NRL. Like you warm up with the NRL team, you're on the bench with the NRL team, you get to feel that, which I think is actually quite an interesting development spot. So they're between New South Wales Cup and NRL. But Fatialofa, he's just always in New South Wales Cup now. Luke Hansen, playing a lot more New South Wales Cup recently. Toby Crosby, he was playing under 21s last year. Now he's just on the bench. New South Wales Cup every game. Jason Salalilo from Christchurch is another dude, because he was in New South Wales Cup and now he's on the bench for New South Wales Cup every game. Sorry, he was on the bench for Jersey Flegg. Now he's on the bench he was starting for Jersey Flegg. Now he's on the bench for New South Wales Cup. Then you've got other dudes like Harry Durbin, Makaya Tafua, Rodney Tuipulotu Vea, who have all moved up. Haven't seen much of Sio Kelly or Motu Pasikala, which, like, those two are the best young outside backs on the rise. But in keeping with another theme of the Warriors, they're all right without them. Like the Warriors, like Sio Kelly and Motu Pasikala aren't playing New South Wales Cup right now. So who are the outside backs getting the game time? Dayon Amatuanai, very talented, high potential winger. Morgan Harper's doing his job. Geronimo Doyle play every game at fullback, nothing different there. Mawala Graham Taufa starting centre. William Whakatom Mafe's come in and he's plugging holes in the outside back team for the outside backs for the New South Wales Cup team this week. The only change is Edward Cossey going back down to New South Wales Cup. So again, the high pedigree, high potential outside backs in Sio Kelly and Motu Pasikala, they're not playing and it's all good because there's so much depth. Both of them, I think, are still under 21s eligible, but they haven't followed. Well, there's actually like this week for the game against the Knights in New South Wales Cup, there's no under 21s in the outside back department. Doyle, Amatuanai, Harper, Graham Taufa, and Cossey. But then on the bench, you still have so you've got Tom Ale returning. You got Stowers Smith starting at prop, but you still have Jason Salalilo and Toby Crosby on the bench in New South Wales Cup, which is a good reminder of their ability and how the Warriors coaching team views their talent.